Welcome to episode number 16 of the Career Breakthrough Series. I'm your host, Paul Ames, and guys, don't forget to hit the subscribe button below to stay up to date with the newest episodes coming out that are going to really help you smash forward into your career. In today's episode, I interviewed the amazing Libby Gill. Libby Gill is the former head of communications and public relations for brands like Sony, Universal, and Turner Broadcasting. Another incredible thing is she's also the branding brain behind the launch of the Dr. Phil show, and she's been a big contributor into the Oprah network. Libby is now the CEO of LA-based Libby Gill & Company, which is an executive coaching and consulting firm, and she helps guide emerging and established leaders at organizations like Disney, Ernst Young, Kellogg's, Microsoft, and Warner Brothers, and many, many more. Another incredible thing that Libby's done is she's authored 4 amazing books, including the award-winning You, Unstuck, and Capture the Mindshare, and The Market Share Will Follow. Libby has shared her success strategies on CNN, NPR, The Today Show, and in BusinessWeek, Time, or the New York Times, and many more. Libby is such an incredible and inspirational person, and I'm so happy to have interviewed her, and we have such an amazing chat about career and really moving forward in your life. So guys, let's get started with the interview. Guys, welcome to episode 16 of the Career Breakthrough Series. I'm your host, Paul Ames, and on the show today, we've got an absolutely incredible guest, Libby Gill. Libby is the founder of Libby Gill Consulting. She was a former head of communications and public relations at companies like Sony, Universal, and Turner Broadcasting. She's achieved absolutely incredible things in her career and in her business journey, and I'm so excited to have her on here. She's also the brainchild behind the marketing for the Dr. Phil show, which is absolutely inspiring, and it's such a massive feat. So, Libby, I just wanted to welcome you to the show. I'm so excited to have you on and to learn a little bit more about your message and your story. So, yeah, I really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I'm delighted to be here.
So, Libby, if you could just give my audience a bit of a background into what your life was like growing up, what your childhood was like, where you grew up, and pretty much what were your biggest influences in your career growing up?
Well, it's I don't have really a very happy story. I grew up in the South, in northern Florida, which in Florida people think of it as a sort of a tourist state, but northern Florida, right at the Georgia border, is more sort of deep South. Okay. And I grew up in a big family. And it wasn't long before my oldest brother died on Christmas Day when I was 10. I was one of 6 kids. And where some families pulled together, mine really fell apart. And my dad left. He was a doctor. He married a patient. He moved to another country. I spent my childhood going back and forth and was kind of ungrounded, unrooted. We have a great deal of mental illness that runs through the family, alcoholism. So I wrote a book about it years later when I didn't really tell much of the story when I was in the professional world because it's not a very happy story. Although what doesn't kill you is what really makes you stronger. I certainly became resilient and resourceful. But so many people said, well, how'd you turn out so well? And I finally thought, maybe I'll answer that question. And I wrote my second book was about that journey of sort of coming back to your strongest self. And that book's called Traveling Hopefully, and it's about how you can systematically let go of baggage and sort of those old influences and stories that we tell ourselves based on real events.
Perfect. Wow, that sounds like an incredible, challenging upbringing and a lot of obscurity and a lot of tough times you've had to go through. So thanks for sharing that. And I did notice that your incredible 4 books that you've created and published and authored, they look amazing. And was it 2 of them were bestsellers as well?
Right. You Unstuck won several awards, and my book Traveling Hopefully that I was just referring to also was a bestseller. And then my last book is about marketing and branding. It's called Capture the Mindshare, and The Market Share Will Follow.
Wow, that's amazing. And I love them. I saw the photos and I love the images, the one with the butterflies and the one butterfly coming out the top is really cool. So
thank you.
Sharing that, Libby. So Libby, what would you say would be, obviously coming from quite a big, corporate background before you started your business, what would you say would be some of the biggest learnings, takeaways that you've got from these previous careers? What's some of the biggest things that you've got from these careers?
Well, I think I learned a lot about leadership, both the what to do and what not to do. And entertainment can be a fairly contentious sort of industry. What I learned in the corporate world is that it's not just business, but it's not just professional, it's very personal. I took my responsibilities as a leader really seriously, and I got to know my people. And that, to me, I think made the huge difference. It was things like when my first assistant, when I made VP and had a real assistant, got cancer. And to me, protecting her and protecting her job and sort of rallying around her became a real mission. And she's well, and we are friends today, to this day. I mean, many years later. And then when one young guy, when I was at Universal, wanted to buy his first house, and I remember he took me over to see the house because it was $2,000 out of his price range, and I said, buy the house. Yeah. And I was his boss. I wasn't his mother or his best friend, but for probably more than a decade, he called me on the anniversary of the purchase of that house just to say thank you. And
wow.
I found it was the things you do for business, but it's the things that you do because you really care about the people that binds them to you. And that's what I took away.
Wow, that's great. Guys, go back and have a listen to that. That's such a valuable takeaway from there. So thanks for sharing that, Libby. That's a really great takeaway from your career. So, Libby, what would you say? I ask a bit of a random question, actually. So, obviously, coming from a career counselling background, there's a lot of different therapies and styles I use. So, there's one from solution-focused therapy called the miracle question. So, imagine if you went to sleep tonight. I'm not sure if you've heard this one or not, but imagine if you went to sleep tonight and when you woke up in the next morning, a miracle had occurred and you could impact and change anything you really wanted in the world or impact anyone's lives. What would be that massive change or impact that you'd like to create, and why would it be so important to you?
Well, I guess we don't get the genie's, I wish for many more wishes and I could solve everything. But my personal mission, I'd cure mental illness, or at the very least bring the conversation out into the public and provide resources to people who are suffering, because we see so much homelessness here in Los Angeles where I live. So much of it, at least half of it, is a factor of mental illness. And there's just so much suffering that people have to do in silence or sometimes even in shame. And that, if I could put my flag on the ground in one issue and solve it, that would be it.
Definitely, and it's such a massive thing. It's pretty much the same. It's not to the same level here in Australia, but there's quite a lot of homelessness here as well. And, as you said, mental illness plays a massive part in it, where the people aren't getting the care or support that they really need because the government facilities are underutilized here overutilized here and just don't have the capability for it. So I think that's massive and it'd be a powerful impact. So, yeah.
Well, I haven't figured out how to make that my legacy, but that's what I'm looking at now. How do I make a difference in that world? And it's something I've begun to speak about, which is relatively new for me. But being able to share that message from a firsthand family basis is powerful.
Definitely. That's really true. So I'd love to touch on how you actually got on board with Dr. Phil. I think that's really incredible. I'd love to find out a bit more about how, and especially I saw that you're featured on the Oprah network as well, which was really incredible. I had a look at it on your website and saw some of your videos on there. And I think it's amazing that you're featured in so many media outlets. That's really incredible.
It's been really exciting to be able to do that. But with Dr. Phil, at the time, I'd had a long history in media relations, public relations, branding, all of those communications activities over the years in my studio days. And I'd always worked in television. I worked in so many different talk shows. So they were looking for somebody to sort of head up that, how do we build the Dr. Phil brand? And at the time, I'd already left the entertainment. I was out on my own as a coach and consultant. And they approached me before he was still on the Oprah show. They hadn't, it was 6 months probably before they started that. So I was the first person ever hired there to help create that brand. And I worked with Dr. Phil and Oprah's team and the Viacom folks and his publisher at Simon & Schuster. And it was a big concerted effort. And I'm happy to say I look back and think that worked out pretty well.
Yeah, definitely. You should be so proud of yourself. It's incredible. Yeah. And it goes to show you, the skills that you've developed and the amazing person that you've become as a result. And yeah, obviously people are attracted to that and drawn to that energy and those capabilities you've got. So yeah, massive congrats to you from that.
Thank you. That was fun.
So, Libby, I know that all of us have a really positive habit or a positive trait that really has helped us move forward in our life or potentially achieve the success that we've gotten. But we also have a hindering habit or hindering belief system. What would you say would be one of your most positive habits or positive things that have helped you move forward in your life? And also, what would be one of your most hindering?
Hindering, I think, is, I call that your limiting assumption, and everybody's got sort of one overriding kind of assumption. I think for me, it was what you want doesn't matter. And there was a long time, and it was probably a factor of how I grew up, kind of dodging the landmines. And so it took a long time to think, hey, wait a minute, what I do does matter. So no surprise I went into a communications field where I was putting words into other people's mouths instead of sort of speaking my own. But eventually I wanted to speak up. And I think what has served me the best is just this sense of resilience that comes with, having to learn to be a little tough and a little strong. And that was, for me, I think was probably what helped the most.
Definitely. I think that's definitely a great thing there. And obviously from what you've gone through, everyone goes through really a lot of tough things in their life, and that definitely builds up the resilience to be able to help push through things that most people would fold under or just can't cope with. So yeah, that's a great one.
I also have really developed a lot of thoughts and theories about hopefulness. And one thing I speak about when I go speak in the corporate world is the power of hope and hope theory. And it's really interesting because there's a whole body of science that comes out of the medical and the positive psychology communities about hope as a belief driving behavior. And it's a sense that what you believe at the deepest level, whether you're aware of it or not, is what drives your actions. So when you can really understand what it is that you fundamentally believe, you get a good handle on what you do and why you do it, for positive or for negative.
Exactly.
So
right.
It's also this sense that change is possible, and also belief that what you do, you can't control so much, but the things that you can control can really drive a much more positive outcome for you, your family, your community, your clients, all the people that you serve.
Definitely. I absolutely love that, guys. Go back and have a listen to that because, Libby shared some absolute gold there. That's brilliant. So just touching on all of this, Libby, so I know you've come through a lot of tough things and you had quite a hard and probably traumatic upbringing. So what would you say would be one of the biggest mental roadblocks you've had to overcome, like whether that be, mentally or, biggest mental roadblocks you've had to overcome, and how have you overcame them?
Whoa. Oh, that's such a good question. I think probably one of the roadblocks I had, and a lot of people, particularly women, share this, was a sense of, I've got to do it all alone. I've got to do it all myself, which is, it's oddly a selfish attitude, because who are we to think that we have all the answers? And yet when you don't want to expose your vulnerability or your weaknesses, or in some cases, what you don't know, it feels very, like you're exposing a lot of your inner self if you let that be known. But once you do, there are so many kind people that step up to help you. And you get a good gut about people that are there to help you with both your personal, professional. There are paid people, there are unpaid people, there are all sorts of people out in the world that can help you do what you do better than the things that you could do better than you would do on your own. So building that team, coming from that place of, I've got to do it all, I've got to know it all, to, hey, I don't have to know it all, and I want people who are much smarter, much more talented around me.
Definitely. Yeah, that's great. That's really good. So I'm not sure about you, but I know a lot of my audience and myself personally, read a lot of books or have a lot of resources that really help us to learn and grow. So what would be one of the top either books or tools or resources that have really helped you progress with your business or in your career?
Well, I feel I have to be a good role model for others to not hide your light. So I will say my book, You Unstuck, which is probably my favorite book that I wrote. But there's many books I like, but there's one that I love that's not on everybody's business radar, called Change or Die. Okay. And it really, a journalist wrote this, and it comes out of healthcare, and how so many of the diseases that we have as human beings are stress and self-imposed. They're lifestyle diseases. And interestingly, in the research that this journalist has done, not very many people want to change their lifestyles. It's only something like 9 or 10% of people say, fine, I'll tackle that, I'll change. And so when this fellow discovered that, he went on a mission to say, well, wait a minute, that seems crazy to me. Who has changed? Who has made these huge changes? And he went to a group of convicts who now all live together and have built these businesses, and some people who have taken alternative health and all these different things, and really sort of peel back the onion on what motivates people to change when so many people are so resistant and they dig in their heels even when their own life is on the line.
Wow. That's crazy. Yeah, I didn't even know that at like only 8 to 10%. That's absolutely astounding, and I think it's a shocking factor. And like you'd probably know as well, I think it's like 80% of people actually hate their jobs as well, and I think that's why it's something like we're quite passionate about, or working with the corporate field, because it's just like, this is something you're doing for the majority of your life. You're spending nearly all your time at your workplace. So, why wouldn't you do something that is satisfying you and fulfills you, or actually fills your own cup up? So, yeah, that's amazing. That's actually blown me away, those facts. So.
You're so right, Paul. I think in the entertainment world, I got pigeonholed. They always tell you, be careful what you're good at because you're going to stay there. And I was able to break out and go into production and development of television shows. And it was a hard sell to be able to segue into that. But had they said, hey, you've got a lot of talent, let's retrain you and move you here and move you there. And some companies do that, but a lot don't. Yep. And if leaders took the time to really understand people's passions and where they wanted to be and where they wanted to go, and given whatever the company does, address those as clearly as they could, they'd have a lot more happy, productive workers. Exactly right.
And that's something I've recently just started on, is like with a lot more of the corporate stuff, is succession planning. I found out that, that's, as you know, that's one of the biggest problems. They don't plan they don't get these candidates who are interested in moving up or progressing in their career with their career development. And, when a manager leaves, quits, gets made, just anything can happen in life. They don't have anyone to fill in, and they have to start from the ground up to train up someone. And whereas, having succession planning coaching help these people to be trained up and qualified, ready to just go into that role for any reason that may happen. I think that's something so big, something so needed in the world, especially in corporate.
Absolutely. So they're putting their heads in the sand if they don't think they need to build bench strength. Definitely. Or just in total denial that the people at the top are going to live forever. I mean, it's crazy.
Exactly.
Yeah, you have to work that out. And I'm a big proponent of moving people up from within. I used to tell, when I'd hire new people, I would say in my studio days, if I can't move you up within a year, I'll help you find something out there. My hope was that people would always progress, and there would be enough just natural movement and attrition that there'd always be somebody growing and changing.
That's perfect. Thanks for sharing that, Libby. So just moving on, I'd love to know what's the biggest thing that you're most excited about looking forward into your business, or what you're currently up to in your business. I'd love to know some of the biggest things that have really lit you up inside.
Oh, I have a really fun mix, which is really appealing to me. I like that variety. Executive coaching, I coach senior and also emerging leaders, and I work with media companies and healthcare and technology companies. So I've always got a nice mix of different kinds of organizations. I do a lot of corporate speaking, which I also love, almost always on leadership, occasionally on women's leadership. I could get on my soapbox on that, but I'll save that for another time. and now, because I work with people one-on-one or in large groups, I thought, well, I really need to split the difference. So I created a digital course that's a hybrid of online learning and one-on-one coaching, so that we can, different groups can come into it, or people can take it individually. And that's new and different for me. It's been a lot of fun.
Definitely. And I can relate to the online space. Like my business partner, Sarah, she's actually been voted, I think it was in the 50 most influential women, I think it was for Influensive magazine or something like that. And she's actually helps people create online courses. She's a specialist in that. So yeah, we've recently, I think last year, just done our first 10 online courses in career development. So yeah, it's a different space to go into, but I think it's such a rewarding one and a great one to be able to, automate a lot more of your knowledge, or to, get your message out to the masses a lot easier. So
exactly. And it allows people that can't afford to work with you the access and the opportunity to get some of that coaching without, especially if they're on their own and the company's not paying for it. It's nice to be able to make it affordable and accessible.
Definitely. And I was going to say, I loved all the businesses you worked with. Obviously, you've had quite an expansive career and business journey. So, I saw some of the companies that you've worked with, and I think that's absolutely incredible. So, I'd love to find out a little bit more about your business and, basically how you help people, or if there's anyone in the audience who's, a corporate manager or leader who's looking to engage your services. Love to find out a little bit more about, what it is you do and basically how you can help them progress.
Sure. I work with both the organization and the individuals. And to me, it's really about honing your leadership skills. And there are all kinds of leaders. You can be a great metrics and statistics sort of person that really deals with data. You can be an inspirational leader that gets people on board through just the power of your message and the excitement that you bring to the job. It's really about figuring out what kind of leader you are and then really making the best of that. But people can just go to my website, libbygill.com, and I've got phone numbers, email. I always look forward to people's emails. Any of your listeners are welcome. And I've got a fun thing that anybody can do as sort of their own self-test. I've got a quiz called yourcareerquiz.com, and it gives you a little snapshot. It's about a 3-minute quiz that shows them what's working and what may not be working so well, with the idea that awareness is your first step. If you're a corporate manager, look at, how are you perceived by others? What are your skills like? What are the deficits like? Do you have a plan of action? Have you told anybody about what your future desires are? I find so many people that want to move up, but they aren't sharing that with anybody. It's not a secret. Go tell someone.
Exactly. That's right. Yeah, it's the same thing. I remember hearing this from one of my coaching sessions a long time ago, and someone saying you might have the best product or service, or in relation to the employees, you might have the best skill set or the best things that you can bring to a corporation, but if nobody knows who you are, then you're just wasting your skills and your talent, or you're wasting your time. You need to get your message out there, and if you got something to share it with the world.
I agree. People assume, hey, if I'm doing a good job, everybody will see it, but no, they're too busy. They're preoccupied. They've got their own things. It should be graceful and strategic and thoughtful, and not a me kind of exercise constantly. But yes, you've absolutely got to put a spotlight on your accomplishments and let people clue them in on not only what the value is that you bring to the organization, but where you see yourself going with it.
Exactly. So very true. So, Libby, touching on leadership, so if I've got some listeners who are looking to potentially move from, just a general entry sort of a role and try and upskill themselves into more of a leadership or managerial role, what would you say would be 3 to 5 actionable tips that they could utilize that could really help them develop and refine their leadership skills, or to potentially position themselves as more of a manager?
Well, one thing that I start with, this is sort of my baseline, is I have people, I think in 1-year increments, because if you think too small, you're not stretching, you're not taking big enough risks. And if you think too broad range, hey, here's what I'd like to accomplish in a decade, it's too out there somewhere in the cosmos. So I really have people clarify their vision. You're in an organization, you're at an entry or mid-level. Where do you want to be in a year? What is reasonable? It may be that you have to have conversations with your manager, that you have to find out what would the next step look like and what do I need to get there? Mm-hmm. So many people just sit back passively and say, oh, well, they told me maybe in 2 years. It's like, well, what has to transpire in those 2 years? What milestones do you have to hit so that you've got that very clear picture? And next, simplify the pathway. Figure out what your time wasters, your derailers, your mental obstacles, real world issues are, and how you best grapple with those so that you can make the quickest move from A to Z. And then finally, how do you execute the plan? How do you hold yourself accountable to task so that you say, okay, I'm a coordinator now. My next step is a junior manager. And then you stop. You got to say, no, what does that look like? Who's in power? Who can make that happen? What are the milestones I need to hit? What do I need to learn and do and demonstrate to others? And then set about doing that. Give yourself a time frame. I have people back it into quarters and then to months and really set those milestones. But I always pick a 1-year initiative, whether it's writing a book or building a course or learning something new. And I think when you look at things that aren't necessarily urgent, nobody's saying, make this call, take this meeting, but it elevates your game. It's important, but it's not urgent. Those are the projects where you would say to your supervisor, hey, what if I tackled this? Would this be meaningful? Would this help you? And it may be that side project that people know would be a great idea, but nobody's gotten around to it. If you can do your day job and hit that note, that's a demonstrable extra value that you bring to the table.
Definitely. I love that. Guys, grab a pen and paper and go back and take some notes on that. Libby's just shared some absolute amazing advice there to help you really thrive and succeed and move forward in your career. So thanks so much for sharing that, Libby. I really appreciate your amazing advice.
You're welcome.
So, Libby, we're just getting ready to wrap up soon. So what would be some parting advice or parting knowledge or something that you've really learned that you think my audience could really benefit from that you've gained from your life experience?
Well, I really had to learn. I was one of those kind of keep your head down and work hard people. And when I got into entertainment and I started as an assistant, and the company was, it was a well-known production company, but I thought, oh, I'm in this small company, but it got bought by Columbia Pictures and then Coca-Cola and then Sony. And I thought, I better just keep raising my hand. And I didn't always know what I was doing, but I kept raising my hand. And in 5 years, I was the vice president of Sony's worldwide television group, overseeing advertising, publicity, and promotion. So it was a big, fast learning curve. And what I found was not to be afraid of it, not to expect to know everything, to be comfortable with people who were much better subject matter experts. I was surrounded by people that knew a lot more than I did. And instead of feeling nervous about that, I thought, thank goodness they're here. You know, the troops are here. The people that really know something. I'm here to lead, but they really know what needs to be done. And embracing that and feeling okay about that was a huge lesson.
Definitely. And wow, like I said before, you know, that's amazing what you've achieved. You should be really, really proud of yourself. I think a lot of us don't reflect on, you know, the incredible achievements that we've gone through in our life. We're so forward paced that we don't actually stop and go back and go, you know what, I actually did really well. I've achieved that, like just by talking about that in those 5 years or in that time, you've become vice president. That's incredible.
Well, that's the beauty of putting some of this on paper, that you can look back and say, wow, I did that. And one thing I tell people when their confidence is flagging or they're looking for a job or they're in that kind of limbo state, read your own bio. Look at your LinkedIn. Look at your thank you letters. Look at all the great things you've done, because you're absolutely right. We forget it and move on to the next thing. But often that's enough to sort of buoy you up and make you think, yeah, I am making a difference. I am providing value. And it's a really good feeling.
Definitely, it sure is. And like I can relate to when I very first started my business. I think like most of us, when you very first start up, because it was so far left field I came from like a manual labor sort of a background my whole life. And, you know, my dad had his own business, but, you know, that sort of thing. And I'd always come from a working class, middle class family. And so it was so far left field doing counseling or anything that helped people. Like no one in my family had done that. And it took me a long time to build up the confidence in myself, and where I had to reflect and go, you know what, Paul, you are actually really helping people, because you start thinking, what if I'm not, you know, helping people get the results they really want? And then you're like, I've got all these amazing testimonials, so obviously I'm doing something right, which you know, by just looking back on what you've achieved in your career, I think that really gives you a good point of reference of, you know, what you're capable of, and that your potential is really unlimited.
And everybody's got that. An entry-level employee, a college student, we've all got that unique gift or talent. I just call it your leadership superpower. We've all got something that we do differently, that we do better, that's just ours. And if we look at it and own it and kind of step into it and say, yeah, you know what? I am the world's greatest listener. When I talk to people, I really get inside their heads and they know I'm listening. Whatever it is, we've all got something, and we tend to take it for granted because it comes naturally.
Exactly.
But when we look at that and think, yeah, you know, and you know, from what we do, there's no greater thrill than somebody calling you and saying, it worked, I did it happened. I mean, that's more exciting than making something happen for yourself. When somebody says, I landed it, whatever it is.
Yeah, exactly right. It's so true. It's such an amazing, for me, it's like the transformation in people as well from when they first start out with us. And then, they're not in a good frame of mind. They're lacking confidence. Yeah, they've got a lot of self-doubt and limiting beliefs and things holding them back. And then to see the result after they finish with you, and they're a completely different person. Well, I won't say they're completely different. They've realized that there's an incredible person within them that has come out and allowed to thrive. I think that's the biggest thing that I really notice.
Yeah, it's a great feeling. I mean, this is a wonderful field just for that. There's no end of how the human mind works, and then how we apply our beliefs in the real world, and what we let get in our way, and all of those things that have always been fascinating. I started out to be a marriage counselor and then went into entertainment instead. And I like coaching so much more because you get to do all these crazy collaborations and things that I couldn't do as a therapist because of the confidentiality. But so this for me is a great blend of what makes you tick, how do you act in the workforce, and it's that blend of personal and professional that I find so exciting and rewarding.
It definitely is. Libby, I want to thank you so much for your time. You're such an inspiration to me. Like, just talking to you, I love the energy you bring and the incredible things you've done. So I really appreciate your time in coming on my show. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on here. So, Libby, I'd just love to know, I know we touched on it before, but where can my audience best get in contact with you? What's your website or your email address for them to get in contact with you?
It's pretty easy. It's LibbyGill.com, and it's LibbyGill. And my email address is Libby@LibbyGill.com.
Perfect.
And there's all kinds of freebies on my homepage. And I truly do, because you and I both know, only a handful of people will pick up the phone and call you or shoot you an email when you're a total stranger. Definitely. So I'm always happy to say, you have a question or you need something, send it my way. And I'm happy to answer it. Yeah.
That's perfect. And guys, don't forget to take a look at Libby's incredible books. She's got some absolute gold in those books. And you guys won't regret it. It'll definitely be a life changer and game changer for you. So, Libby, thank you again for being on the show. And I really appreciate your time. It's great talking to like-minded people with such a passion and drive for what they do. So thank you again.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
And guys, stay tuned next week. We've got another incredible entrepreneur or leader in their industry who's really going to help you progress and thrive in your career. So stay tuned then. Are you feeling lost in your career? Or do you feel like you're just working job after job that feels absolutely meaningless and pointless to you? If you are, be sure to jump on Libby's incredible career quiz. It will help you really figure out what sort of career path best aligns with everything that you want out of your life and your career, and will help you get to that next level of fulfillment and passion in your life. So be sure to jump on the link below, which is bit.ly/careerquiz1, or as bit.ly/careerquiz1. And guys, stay tuned for another incredible episode next week that's really going to help you smash through those barriers and take your career to the next level. I'll see you then.